boa tarde, good afternoon, bem-vindos, bem-vindas aqui, a plateia que está aqui no Onono e também a plateia virtual. E por que estou falando português? Sorry about that. We need to switch to English, the official language of the event, because we have speakers in English. I'm Ornella. I'm together with the team. We are responsible for Onono, which is BASF Scientific and Digital Experience Center in South America, where we deal with open innovation and to connect BASF challenges, customer challenges, and the open innovation ecosystem in order to be more future ready, and to be able to bring the trends and transform that with the power of the ecosystem into new business. Yeah. So we are an area of experimentation for the ODs and for the customers. And for that, we cannot do it without having good connections and good partnerships. So with Future Hacker, we are very happy to have this partnership. We have started some months ago with the launch of a book, also with a podcast, but with partnerships are the one that lasts. So we are very happy to be here with the quantum thinking. Today we are having a very rich conversations, but the idea is not only to hear inspiring stuff, but also what you are going to do afterwards with that. So please use this time, the one that we have already, but the next time to connect. For people in the virtual audience, it's more difficult to connect among yourself, but feel free to send your comments through the chat as well. And of course, be inspired and put that in practice into the next days, okay? So without more further comments, very welcome. Onono is a place open for everybody to connect with innovation and specifically with open innovation and green transition. And now I want to welcome Maria, or Eduardo, and Maria as well. Hi, Maria. Nice to see you again. So Eduardo is going to continue with the opening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ornella. Thank you, Onono's team, for having us here today. And it's a pleasure to have such a partner like Onono. Thank you very much, Ornella, again. Welcome to Quantum Thinking 2024. This is our 4th anniversary event, so we do this annually. And our idea here today is to present to you opportunities for hearing some good information regarding our 3 pillars that we carefully made the creation of this, which are humans. Gonna have an amazing talk from Ligia. I will let afterwards Maria will talk more about the agenda and all the events. We're gonna have a track for environment and another for society. So these 3 pillars we're going to cover in a specific way, and they're gonna be, we are sure that they're gonna be a very nice conversation with you, and I hope that you enjoy. Just to make sure that everybody knows us, we are Future Hacker. We are an innovation hub. We have more than 150 specialties and experts from 40 different countries in our network. So what we're gonna have here today is a sample of this amazing network of exceptional specialists. So let me introduce Maria Taide, my partner, together with André. And she is going to lead all the conversations here. Thank you, Maria.
Hey, thanks, Duda. Thank you, Ornella. I'm so happy to see you all here. Thank you so much. Also, thank you for everybody that was able to make it online as well. I'm going to be very brief here. I know that we're all looking forward to hearing about all the amazing people we have. We're all from Future Hacker Networks as well. And we're going to start with the humans pillar. I'd like to introduce you to Ligia Zotini. Ligia is an old-time future hacker, right, Ligia? You've been with us since the very beginning, I think. She's the founder of Voicers, and they just did this really amazing research about the new humans and about the behavior of new generations. And of course, I'm going to let her do all the talking. Welcome, Ligia. Thank you for joining us, and the stage is yours.
Maria, Future Hackers, it's a pleasure to be here. Technology always plays its part. So we're going to start the conversation, and as soon as we get back, or if it's not there, we are going to keep the topics. The intention here is, as Maria told, I used to work with future scenarios. Since 2016, when I leave IBM, I have here friends from that time. The intention always had been to map in people which consciousness are also in development as much as technology. From technology labs, I could see that from now and up to the past, technology is neutral, but not necessarily it's going to be in the future. If we keep going on bringing machines as much as look-alike humans, and humans being used as machines. So on that perspective, when we start Voicers, there is two pillars: new technology, which everybody is aware of, but there is also new humans. So if I need to say what new humans are, it has been, expanding from the last 6-7 years. But on this new line of study, we understand that new humans are people with more consciousness about themselves. And this personal consciousness usually goes in their environment also. So they have personal consciousness and they have social consciousness. And on that perspective, technology is used in another way, a little bit different than just performance or team performance. So we have here again. So in that perspective, I would like to bring you, let me see just if I can change. Okay. If they are more consciousness, our intention with this line of research is understand how it happens and why it happened. And what we got is, I think if someone can help me, I think it's easier. What happened is, next one, they are not a trend. Usually, as technology comes, we say, oh, this is the new trend technology, but with the human consciousness, it's never a trend. It is a consequence. And a consequence of what? It's working? Okay. A consequence of what? There are many reasons of someone expand their consciousness, but on that study, we'd like to focus on technology and the perma-crisis, which is the many crises we have outside, but also the mental health crisis around the planet. A large part of the population, usually when they are facing challenge outside, they go through only single group of people and usually polarize. And we see that a lot in the world today. But a smaller, but very important and impactful part of the human beings, they go through multiple perspectives. And on this situation, they start exercising self-knowledge, self-development, and by consequence, they present or they leave this shift of consciousness inside out. And the main question is what we understand on this study about consciousness. Who are these new humans? Which consciousness are plural, are different, are single, are social, are diverse? We like to use what Ken Wilber usually present to us, the map of consciousness. Ken Wilber presented to us more or less 30 to 40 years ago. Bring us as a society from beige, survival, when we're born. Like my 4-year-old girl, usually she's from beige to purple. She's starting going through red, a kind of individualism, which a young kid plays around up to 7. If we are a privileged society or privileged person, we go to orange, which is scientific, success, entrepreneurs, business world, and on that perspective, it's intellectual privilege journey. From here to green, yellow, and turquoise, or teal sometimes, we need to make an exercise of self-development. It's not given. is developed. So from here to there, if you are privileged, you go through the journey, university, post-graduation, master, and go on. From here to there, it's a new human consequence. We focus on this study on the three because they have adjectives, they have qualities we want to test. It's a first wave of a study. So we want to see who are the plural people, who are the eco people, which is pretty much what green on this Ken Wilber perspective goes through. After you go through your diversity or your activism line of speech, line of study, line of living, probably you need to start to go in more development, and you ended up in yellow, which integrates your activism to the real world. We are facing some challenges in diversity and activism because we group ourselves, and sometimes it's pretty hard to talk to people outside their point of view or our point of view, depending on the activism we all go through. Yellow is this flexible, integrative, and go again to business perspective. And the turkeys, it's about people who understand they are physical being, they are psychological being, and they are spiritual beings. So it's the first time we can put together this spiritual energy, invisible layer in consciousness decision in everyday life. So what they say, what can Wilber say? 6% in population and 50% in power are on these three last consciousness colors. And it's new, it's more or less 20 to 30 years, it's one generation. Before that generation, which are the adults probably sitting around here today, we usually stop in the orange. Sometimes one another go more green, but pretty much not more than that. So it's a brand new way of living. And in that, we start seeing new ways of existing in business. So new generation, they are bringing new consciousness. Who are working with Z probably are seeing they are different in values. At the end of the day, they come here, they work with us, but they are challenging us in the values they bring. And usually those values, and I'm going to point it out soon, those values are going to also appears again when you start to develop your consciousness. They want more time. They want more flexibility. They have more than one identity, which is not just work or professional identity. They are ecosystemic. They are interconnected. They defend diversity narratives. When you go through a journey of expanding your consciousness, the same values appears again. So that's why we are signing this study. They are coming, we are becoming, because this is an exercise. So new generation, new conscious, expansion of diversity narratives and business transformation are what we call in future scenarios the signs, strong signs around us that something's changing. And we, the brands, we, the leaders, we, the professionals, are also looking at this. So this is our hypothesis. This is a study, and probably you're going to need 1 or 2 decades to see if this is going to move. But our hypothesis, our bet is new generations coming. If Z is shaking around, we need to see when Alpha comes, because they are the first generation whose parents respect them from the beginning. We are not prepared to people which respect is the base of the relationship. So if Z, it's something shocking us, waiting for the alphas. And that perspective, new generations plus expansion of diversities plus business in transformation equal potential for consciousness change. And this line of study aims the leadership, the big companies, because leadership in big companies, they have big powers, big power of changing a lot of lives. So we are focused on orange consciousness, which is 50% in power and 30% in population. And this is the amount of people where mental health, burnout, they are looking for, propose, their identity at work, what's true for them. They are highly privileged. And there is an emptiness inside on the orange people, mainly on the women. My partner in this study, Tanya, she has a company called Inner. So she works mainly with C-level, women C-level. If company knew how many women C-level are doing B-plan to leave the leadership, they would be shocked. C-level women in leadership nowadays. So they are coming, we are becoming, and it's a spiral of changing. If technology and permacrisis come to us and made some new humans, we are gonna go through this. More technology is coming next 20 years, we all know. If two technology, big data and mobile phones, did all this change to us, and propose consciousness is not disconnected of the windows, the mirrors we have in our pockets, it's truly connected. Can we imagine at least 7 big tech or big technologies that are developing, mature in the next 2-3 decades? So more technology, it's gonna free time or freeing up time, giving us time back. Then work is gonna change. Then we are gonna have more time to this self-development. Then consumptions change when we get this truly investigation of our internal being. Then ecosystem is gonna change. So in this study, we went through very important voices that we are going to show at the end, which are experts on these 3 areas, plus technology. But the first one is time, because technology needs to give us time back, needs to free up time. I don't know if you are all aware of pilots like 4 days week. In Brazil, we just finished this, like the week of 4 days and the weekends of 3 days. Renata Rivet is the leader of this project. She is in the study, pretty close to us on this perspective. All the flexibility we are all thinking about. Maybe it's not removing the Friday. Maybe it's just giving the people flexibility of have more time to get to know, to get to contact, to, I don't know, healing some perspective inside. And in the study, we bet in 3 technology: generative AI, of course, the immersive reality, and hypermobility. Here we have Claudio Pinhaes, the AI scientist. I know he's a future hacker too. Immersive reality, we have Rodrigo Terra, one of the voices we have for immersive technology in the whole Americas. And hypermobility, we interviewed the president of Hyperloop Latin America. And all of them are pretty unanimous or in telling we need to have this time back to humanity. When Hyperloop connects São Paulo, Rio, I just arrived from Rio. In 12 minutes, what we are gonna do with the time that we're gonna save from all the logistics and all the day by day in the work. In that, I would like to leave one provocation at the end of the 4 main areas we are talking about our spiral. So far, we have used technology to increase performance. And we have generated significant infrastructure progress. What if we use a technology to generate substantial progress in consciousness? The second is work. The objective for work is flexibility. We are not asking for cut it off one day of work. It doesn't work. We need to rethink in our way of work. If AI is going to do part of the job, if hypermobility is going to move things and people and objects and food faster, if a digital layer call it immersive, it's going to come to us and bring real things closer and closer and faster, what humans are going to do? I never read things about this in the main news. We need to imagine every time about it. I know we are here with futuristic colleagues, and it's hard for us because we need to always imagine. If you turn on your Netflix, 99% of the narratives is great technology with horrible people. None of the narratives brings normal people, me, you, people who are trying our best version using technology. This is a lot. People have their mind populated with this topic every time. They cannot imagine anything else. So, I would like to rephrase that work is not just flexibility, is also the multiple identities that we need to let come up in our lives. For so long, your job defined who you are, who am I. And on that perspective, we need to bring not just a full person at work, which is the claim of many diversity narratives, but we need also have more time to live other identities than not just work. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, which is a privileged journey. When I have time to be a mother, 2 hours per night, few hours at the weekend, and then I need to be a mother, a friend, a wife, a teacher, a sister. It's a lot to be struggle in few hours around the 40 hours I need to deliver working. So I love this quote from Keynes. Keynes is the father of microeconomy, and he quoted in the 1930s. The people of the future, us, 100 years almost, would only need to work 15 hours a week to keep the same productivity. He did not know. Yes. What happened? That's why we speeded up so much the development. That was great. We created amazing machines. We are in the middle of big revolutions. We have the planet connected. But I work with time literacy. And I arrive in a company and I can find 5 decades between teams. There are people in the 90s where all the boxes were organized and the time were very slow. And I have people in the 40s, 2040s. So I have 50 years between colleagues. It's not possible to work on that thing. If we speed up time and put more work in the same 8 hours per day, 5 days a week, probably we're gonna end up in 2050 with 100 years of difference between people if they are not updating themselves. Not only in technology, because in the human pillars, people have more difficult to update themselves in diversity, in mental health, in psychological safety, in all these narratives that are really important to keep humans. So, my provocation. So far, work has been synonymous of wealth creation and the unique identity for most of individuals, okay? How would it be if work was synonymous for consciousness creation while continuing to live wealth, but with multiple identities? The next one is consumption. And my partner is pretty much an expert on this too. Tanya always like to make the reflections about whatever you put your money, you are agreeing and reinforcing and, make that living, existing, agreeing with that existency. So truth, when you have more time, more flexibility, you go to know yourself, your consciousness expand and all that journey, probably you're going to be a more truth person. First with yourself, then with your values, And that it's going to translate in what you consume, what you eat, what you listen, what you watch, what you wear. Everything's going to be around that. And we need to go through transparency too. What is essential? That level of consciousness, they don't buy using the trigger. You know, I was from marketing, part of my career, and we used to work with trigger message. These kind of people, they don't buy triggers. They buy what they want because they are conscious on what they need. So it's a different conversation. It's a different narrative. They are very powerful when they really believe in your brand. So far, organizations have taught us about mass consumption, which is often characterized by excess and accumulation. How would be if organizations promoted and thought new forms of consumption based on transparent, through, and sufficiency? Ecosystem is the last one. I love this because all the ideal world nowadays is about human-centric. Let's do about human-centric, talk about human-centric, product based on human-centric. These people, these new humans, they are not about human-centric. They are about life-centric. Life's in the center. There is the people rights, but there is the river right. There is the forest right. There is the whole ecosystem right. Are we ready for all these rights? So far, organizations have operated under the logic of human at the center, exploiting the planet and its ecosystem in the name of progress. What would organizations look like if they operated under the logic of life-centric, generating and preserving essential ecosystem for the planet? We like to say here, if a company plays by the life-centric perspective, if the company disappeared, the planet loses. And in a summary, technology freeing up time for consciousness expansion, then work supporting flexibility in choices and identities, consumption promoting truth in human exchange, and ecosystem fostering regeneration and not just sustainability. Sustainability is not enough. We need to get back to better matrix of life. Maria, Andrea, I think we are good here with the summary. There is more. It's a huge study, but I think we have the summary here, and I'm going to put at the last slide so you can see all the takeaways, because it's just a summary. And if you want to see how the people, oops, I think the last one, if you could help me, you have the QR code for the study, and I think we can open up for the panel and we can discuss and keep up the conversations. I think it's the last slide where you have the QR code, please. And but that's just the first waves. We need and we want to identify the new humans people and the new human zone and all the team leaders and organizations who identify themselves with this kind of perspective. We have a podcast, Tanya, called New Humans, with this S in the end. And you can see deeper conversations. We have been interviewing leaders from big brands who already play according to these new values and conscience. Thank you.
Thank you. Eu usei. Já. Foram rápidos, hein? Thank you so much, Ligia. I think it's wonderful, wonderful material, wonderful presentation. I'd like to invite to this conversation. We will be able to see Neil on the screen, guys. Yes? So I'd like to invite Neil Redding. So Neil Redding is connecting straight from the United States. He is a near futurist, which I love this term because, every time we talk about the future, we naturally have this hard time of putting ourselves out there. So he's a near future. He's making it closer to us, right, Neil? And he's also a South by Southwest speaker. He's a consultant. And more recently, he's a future hacker as well, right, Neil? So thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to kickstart this conversation. I'm just wondering, Neil, after seeing, this all presentation about the new humans and the new values, the new habits, how do you see this integration with machines, with AI going on? And how do you think we should be planning that and aligning that between ourselves, first of all? So thank you.
Muito obrigado. Ligia, amazing talk. When we met a few weeks ago, I would say everything you're sharing is so, as to see, yes, it's fantastic. But I will try to answer that specific question. I've enjoyed about the, it's kind of a yes and no, like the way the picture you're painting about humans, and life-centered economies, where they're removing for all living things, medium limits, including versions, all kinds of other things, right? This is very important, and then it does feel very much like the next stage in the evolution of our consciousness as living beings, as humans, and the way I like to think of AI and generative AI, right? I mean, the advances of the last couple of years is so profound that it feels like AI is moving well beyond being a tool that we use, like a hammer or a website or a phone or any of it, but moving into a realm of something more like a new species, right? And in that sense, if we imagine that AI has become like a new species, then it does feel like something that we want to consider as a participant in these ecosystems. So we say life-centered, but can they send something through the eye, or is there some larger scope, right? Something bigger circulates to say everybody calls that out that includes, or maybe we just consider AIs to be living things in some sense, right? So it's early days for this idea, but I do feel like, and this is what I'm speaking about in my talks, including at South by Southwest, is this idea that AI models are participating with systems. We all participate in it, and is this systems are everything this prepared? There's a conversation into teams that are their families and to in terms of cities and neighbors like or so anywhere else. The world is made of these ecosystems, and so what we want is to, I think, is wanted to at least leverage an increasingly strong relationship with psychology, AI, to help us advance our consciousness. I think this is not really happening. Most of us, I think, people I speak to that use ChatGPT or Large, Gemini, or something like that, Large, for an AI tool, has this experience of thinking together, or ideating together, brainstorming together, like a thought partnership, right, with the technology. And so I think these are early stages of the AIs feeling like they're just working with us, they're collaborating with us, and they're part of these larger ecosystems. So I can obviously speak for a while about this, but I'll stop there, Maria, because I imagine you want to take the conversation a little further.
Thank you so much, Neil. And I'd like to take this opportunity to invite Mariana Baer to compose our roundtable. Mari, please. So everybody, this is Mariana Baer. She is a specialist in storytelling and self-compassion. And getting into the self-compassion piece here, Mariana, I was just wondering, let's play along with Neil. Let's say AI as a new type of being, right? Basically, we've been designing machines and we've been designing AIs. And I'm sorry that I'm under back. And in a way that we are getting those perfect answers, right? We're getting it efficiently, we're getting it fast, it's data-based. And at the same time, we as humans, and I'm almost sure that everybody here is we are still all humans here. Maybe Guy, I'm not sure about him, right, Guy? Anyways, we as humans, we are prone to making errors. We are fallible, right? And I think it's already hard for us to have this self-acceptance about our own errors. Sometimes it's hard for us to accept our loved ones' errors as well. And by building those machines, I don't know, maybe how is this relationship going to evolve? And talking about self-empathy and self-compassion, right? How are we going to be able to accept ourselves by getting used to so much quick and exact answers? And who knows, I remember that Neil once said that maybe AI agents will even be our bosses or our colleagues. So how are we dealing with that? And how are we accepting ourselves in that scenario? An easy question for you, Mari.
So I think first we have to think about what it means to be human, right? Because there are good traits to humans and there are bad traits to humans. And a lot of the talk about AI has been around, let's say, the bad traits that people program into AI, for example, biases and things like that we see. But there's also another side to it. So yesterday, for example, I was playing around with ChatGPT and I was asking it, based on the conversations, the inputs that I've asked for over the last few weeks, could you create a picture of who I am and what I do? And so it did that. And then I asked it, what are my values and what are my strengths? And then it gave me some answers. And the answers were pretty spot on. So I think one thing that AI does that we as humans know how to do, but we don't do as much as we can, is active listening. And active listening is the first step towards empathy, right? If you want to have empathy with other people, you really have to learn how to do active listening. And so AI may have some of the bad traits, but I think we need to look at more what are the good traits that it has. And what you said about AI as our leaders or bosses or whatever. Again, we all know what it means to be a good boss, what a good boss should make us feel, but how many really, really good leaders are there in the world? And there's an issue with leadership and with peers, which is if you're a leader or if you're around with your colleagues, you're always thinking about how are things going to affect me, right? There's always a power dynamic going on, and it's very hard to escape that. But with AI, at least for now, AI has nothing to gain or to lose. So in a sense, AI can make a space be more psychologically safe. It may be easier to say to AI, I'm not so sure about this, or I'm not feeling too confident. You may be able to talk about some things that you couldn't talk to your peers or to your bosses. So I think it's worth thinking about how can we use AI to perhaps change the model of leadership that we have today and have a more collaborative, compassionate, and empathic style of leadership in the world. Maybe AI can remind us how to be more human in, focusing on the good traits of humans.
That's a great provocation, Mari. I love it. I actually love to hear Ligia's opinion on that, because Ligia is so human-centered. We had a heated discussion in our intro call, right, Ligia? Just enlighten us.
Do you really want to listen my opinion? Okay. I think this is one amazing perspective, but because I'm always in contact with consciousness people, when they come to me and explain what relationship are for them, never, ever, ever come up AI. AI is just a tool, it's just a machine, it's just a support. Even if when the maturity of AI comes, it's going to be an intelligent machine, but not necessarily consciousness. And on perspective, that thing about, we are going to have, AI is going to be my partner. I'm going to date I'm going to date the AI because they have an active listening, or because they have an empathy, because Her, the movie Her. This is never, ever being considered by these people, because they made a very good self-knowledge, healing, internal, inner process that the other human being, if they come up, let's date an AI. For that people, dating someone means you did your homework about your psychology part. You checked your traumas. You have a good energy after work. You are really present if we are planning to have a kid. If you are a woman, that's a question we considered. Otherwise, maybe the AI is better, but we are not even considered another human being that are not a person who really wants to be your best next version. So dating an AI, having, I don't know, a therapist which is AI, is not being considered by new humans at this point.
At this point, At this point, right? I'm supposed to wait 2 seconds. Okay, I'm too impatient. I was already giving away. Neil, you have to jump in here.
Don't kill me, Neil Pierce, please.
So I have a question for you, Ligia. So when I see new humans, the way you describe new humans, I feel like that's me. Like I want to raise my hand and say yes. Why? I don't know if I'm going to get the words exactly right that you just said, but why would you say that AI or relating to AI as a kind of peer or a kind of new species is not part of this model of new humans? Or could you clarify?
Okay, it's still a initial conversation, but as far as we can get from the interview and the interviewers, they do not believe that the AI is going to get consciousness. Consciousness is another thing. It's not something produced by the brain. It's something produced by your whole biological avatar that goes through life and gets experience. So all you experience gets back inside of you from your whole body, and then brings you memories and learnings and knowledge, and then consciousness. So based on this truth, machines are going to be partners, are going to be technology, kind of intelligence, but not consciousness. And on that perspective, and there is a, like the last color, the turkeys, they also believe in a spiritual part. So how you're going to exchange energy with a machine? So they go through this,
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think I personally feel more open to the idea that consciousness and empathy and feelings and emotions can exist in very different kinds of entities like AIs. Just I don't know. When I'm old enough to remember when I was a child, I was told that ants or insects or squirrel, like small animals, they don't really have feelings. They don't have emotions. I think in our lifetime, we've come to realize that they do. They can feel, they can be sad, they can be depressed, they can feel excited, they can feel happy, they can certainly feel pain. My sense is that where I start from is just to kind of assume that anything that we discover can have some kind of, consciousness is a very specific idea, right? It can have some kind of awareness, some kind of connectedness with other entities and with us. I think. So anyway, I'm just putting that on the table, right, as something to think about. The one other thing that you mentioned about, and you and Maria, right, about AI helping us be our best selves. One of the things that I think is becoming more a part of the conversation now that we've had 2 years of ChatGPT and engaging with these large language models that are really sophisticated and they can do amazing things, and they can seem emotional and all this. Just realizing that because of their the technology of large language models is such that it can only be as good as the best humans are, right? Because of the training data. It's just training data that is what, data that humans produced. So it's super interesting to me to think about, what will other forms of AI start to be able to imagine, or if we have this idea of super intelligence, right? Entities that are more intelligent than we are. We could talk a lot about like what exactly is intelligence, and does it include emotional intelligence and relational intelligence and things like that are absolutely very important. But I certainly hope that this technology will actually be able to show humanity our own blind spots and help us solve uh, the really great challenges that we have at the level of humanity that we humans are having a really hard time solving, right? So we've got some big problems that maybe we could use some help solving.
Maybe they're gonna be outdated somehow, and we will have to be coming up with new words and new definitions, because definitely our current concepts, they don't fit that. They don't fit that. If you try to build it over what we have today, and which also made me wonder, and a term that I learned with you, Mari, which is this sense, all this time that you've been teaching me about self-compassion, the sense of common humanity. What will that mean when we have this interspecies crossing at all?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. I think linked to that and linked to what Neil is saying is I think what happens a lot is when we talk about AI, we're talking as if AI was created from a vacuum. And it's not, right? It's created by humans. So there are traits in there that are humans, because that's what it was, it was programmed by humans. So there are elements of common humanity that it displayed because of its creators. So I think, again, just in a lot of conversations, it seems that AI just sprouted from the ground by itself, and it's not the case. So we have to just keep that in mind as well, that it comes from somewhere, and it comes from us.
100% human generated, right? I know, dude, where are there you are. So we have a question here from the chat, right?
Yeah, Maria, we have a participation here from Fabiano Golfri from our online audience. And the question is, what is the main recommendation to the leader regarding the Z generations? So there is no specific directive ask for someone here, but feel free to answer.
I think we touch Z because of the value they bring. And we have been through many groups to listen them to. So I think leadership for Z, they have great possibility of being engaged if they believe in what you are proposing. They do not want their life only being about the work, but most they believe that they can change the world by the moment they start doing something. On that perspective, leading young people is always a challenge, who have been here for decades. You all know, I know, that they come full of dreams, they know everything, they want to change everything. This is not different from Z. But I think they come to us more digital savvy, and they come to us with many narratives but little experience. And they have the emotional part also fragile. And if you are a mature leader around those young people, you're going to have a very digital, technical, or technological expert. They're going to do what probably you need 2 or 3 agencies to do. And they are there in GPT and all the AI platforms. But they expect that you have a bond, you have a connection with them. If this happens, you probably are going to have a very engaged generation or very engaged young professional, if they do not value or they do not trust you, probably they're gonna quitting quite soon.
So I'd like to take this opportunity now to see if there's any question from the audience. We have the possibility of having one last question. Anyone?
Can I have a question and maybe a different perspective here? Is you mentioned that AI was generated by humans, 100% humans. That's true today. But I remember listening to a podcast from, what's his name again? Yes. Where he said that, where the interviewer, Mark Andreessen, said that in the future, most of the content will be generated by AI. And it's reality today. If you get most of the marketing pieces, they have AI. And so my question, maybe my curiosity is, what's going to happen? Because it starts with humanity, and now it becomes machine. What's going to happen with this in the future?
Neil, wanna jump in?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe I don't know if that was an interview with Sam Altman or someone else, but yeah, I mean, so I grew up professionally as a software engineer, writing code by hand. And I think we're very quickly getting into this realm. Maybe some of you others in the room have done a lot of coding over the years. But if you have, and you're currently coding and you're using AI models to code, you realize that these models can code better than most humans, right? And so just like code is being generated by these AI models, the models themselves, I think, are going to start generating new AI models. And so, yes, I think this is part of what I mean when I think about AI as becoming a participant like us, in the sense that it can create things, it can take initiative, you can delegate to it, you can direct it, it can be a boss, right? I mean, it can hire people and assign work to people, and all of this, 12 months from now, we should have the next quantum thinking 2025 and look back at this, because 2025 is going to be a huge year for agents, right? AIs that you can just give a task to, give a brief, right? Give a whole directive to, and they'll go off and do it on their own, right? So I think certainly but I think none of us are really ready for what this means. We don't really know. But this is why when I think about how can we get ready, I think it's really about, and we've touched on this, I think, Ligia, and we've all talked about this. We want to think about interacting with AI just like we think about, having really advanced, sophisticated, emotionally intelligent interactions with other humans, right? Because, I mean, to the point I think Ligia made, we have all kinds of narratives, you know, on Netflix or everywhere else in movies for decades that have very advanced technology, but very not advanced humans, right? And by the way, as an aside, Star Trek Discovery, if you've never watched this is like thousands of years in the future, and they actually have humans that are behaving differently with each other, much more emotionally intelligent with each other. So check that out if you haven't. But I agree, very few narratives have humans advancing to being better with each other. But we're going to have to do this with AIs as well.
We're actually going to cover that with Jose on the last panel, and I do hope that if the three of you are still around here, just make sure you ask him very hard questions as well, right, Jose? So we need to wrap up. And Mari, I'd like to give you, the last word. Let's say, I'm pretty sure knowing you is going to be a more positive kick to wrap up this panel. But whatever you'd like to contribute to this discussion, the word is yours.
Yeah, I think we just need to hope that the kernel of humanity is present always, and it just continues with whatever evolves And Neil, we can talk about it next year and see if we're still as human as we think or not.
To be continued here, right, everybody? Neil, thank you so much for being here with us. Ligia, Mari, thank you so much. So it's time to move to our next panel. Thank you. And listen. How are your brains doing? Because we really want you guys to be, boiling a little bit. At least when you live here, just to have some sparks going on here. Obrigada, meninas. I'd like to introduce you guys. The next panel is about environment. So we are going to have, all good, Duda? Is there anything? Okay. So we are going to have Davi Lemos. Davi is connecting from Ceará, Brazil. He's the founder of Super Nature Labs. So he's going to talk to us about regenerative urbanism. So another super interesting topic. Davi, are you there? Oh, I'm right in front of you, sorry. Davi, the online stage is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. Hello from Ceará here to everyone there in São Paulo and across the world. I wish I was there, but I'm happy that I'm here. So I'm sorry for you guys who can't go to the beach today. Okay, do you see my screen? Wonderful. All right, so I'm here to talk to you guys about ecological urbanism, regenerative urbanism, and the topic that I specifically wanted to highlight is how can we address the meta crisis, as it has been called, or as Ligia just called it, the perma crisis, right? The permaculture of crisis, by reinventing our cities. A bit on me, I am born in São Paulo, but I live here in Ceará for a few years now. I'm a psychologist, technologist, sociologist. I got my bachelor's from Yale in the US and my master's from Peking University in China. I'm a translator in my spare time of a few of the books that I think are very relevant to this moment that we're living through, including The Listening Society, which talks a lot about this theory of spiral dynamics, right, that Ligia was talking about as well, in the work of Ken Wilber, but it's taking it to the perhaps a different dimension through the lens of metamodernism. And my latest translated book that's coming out beginning of next year is First Principles and First Values, which is the manifesto of cosmoerotic humanism. And I highly recommend you guys looking into that, especially this community here, if you haven't yet. I'm a partner at Super Nature Labs, and I'm a founding member of the Bioplanning Institute. And I'll explain what both of these things are in a moment. But I'll start by sharing with you guys a statistic that I think not a lot of people know, which is that right now, as we speak, humanity is doubling the land coverage of cities across the world. Some estimates talk about 25 years, some talk about 35 years. But in any account, by 2060, everything that we've built so far in terms of land, infrastructure, built area of cities, we're going to do everything again in just 35 years. 10,000 years worth of expansion, what you're seeing on the background here on the slide, again in just 35 years, which is outrageous. It's, if you stop and think about it, it makes absolutely no sense. But yet we are doing that, driven mostly by the urban expansion of Africa and Southeast Asia, and by the second home demand from developed nations, particularly in the US. And we're going to be doing all of that during the so-called meta crisis, right? Which is this combination of climate crisis, the meaning-making crisis, we can't make sense of what's going on anymore, the meaning crisis, we don't see the meaning of our existence, and with the rise of AI, that question of what is life and what is consciousness and what is our purpose here gets more and more pressing. And we're seeing a lot of these scarcity pressures coming along, from the global debt crisis and ballooning sovereign debts, to geopolitical tensions, political polarization inside different countries, peak oil, right? The availability and the marginal cost of oil extraction has reached its peak probably already. And the likelihood of more pandemics happening. We're just seeing something very weird happening in Canada these past few months that could be, you know, again, these things are just around the corner. So how do we deal with all of this together while we're probably going to double the land coverage of the world occupied by cities? And the question that I want to pose here is, can we turn this convergence of crises into an opportunity for deep transformation? So in architecture school, and I don't know if any of you guys are architects, I'm clearly not, but I learned this from my partners and peer architects. The first thing that's told in architecture school is that we shape the environment, and in return, the environment shapes us. And so what that means is that if we look around our cities in the world today, the influence in our behavior that we have been getting from our environment is that of exclusion, is that of isolation and loneliness, and is that of linear thinking. And if there's one thing that defines the meta crisis, is the non-linearity of it. It's the complexity of it. And perhaps the biggest problem that we have right now in trying to address any of those problems of the meta crisis is that we're used to coming with a linear approach to problem solving, you know, the McKinsey method or an analytical method, which is, you know, breaking it down to pieces, which is actually a linear way of approaching it that is not useful, or it's limited in its outcomes given a hyper complex nonlinear problem. And the question then is, what really are the conditions that we are creating for ourselves for a viable future? If we have to solve all of these problems and our cities, the environment that affects us, is creating this kind of condition, is this really the kind of condition that we want to create to ourselves to be able to solve all these issues? Because if this expansion, if this doubling of the urban area, like a cancer that's sprawling through nature, looks more like this, then we might as well just be building our own tombstones. Now, I want you guys to imagine, what if we could grow in harmony with nature? Not like a cancer that's destroying everything it sees and swallowing the resources, you know, Moloch, the insatiable beast, but actually growing in harmony with non-human life, with the environment. What if we could bring back hope to people, to all of this nihilistic vibe, this movement of meaninglessness that has taken over a lot of the orange and green thinkers, particularly, you know, in Europe? You see a lot of young people that are just completely hopeless, and they seek escapism, and they seek entertainment, and they seek whatever narratives to escape from the hopelessness that looking into the abyss of our immediate future feels like today for those that have the cognitive capacity and the complexity to understand the meta crisis and all its implications. But what if we could bring back hope to people? Not a false hope, but a real hope. And what if we could foster non-linearity? How do we foster non-linearity so we have the conditions to solve non-linear problems? And what if we could do all of this today with no techno-utopias, no techno-utopia fantasies of, you know, of cold fusion or, you know, this technological miracle, nanotechnology, this or that? No, using what we currently have available today. So in Supernature Labs and through the Bioplanning Institute, we spent the past 6 years researching all of this, right? Using different words and defining the problem differently. But we came up with 3 simple solutions that we think can help address the meta crisis by reinventing our cities. The first is, what if we design our cities like nature? The second is, what if we design our cities with nature? And the third is, what if we design the cities not just for human life, but for all life? And what we've learned by combining all these three things is that, biomimicry, the study of nature, geometry, patterns, processes, is extremely wise. Nature has had billions of years to develop its designs, while humanity has had, a few couple thousands. And when we look everywhere in nature, what we see are the same kinds of patterns over and over, particularly self-formation. And based on self-formation, we've created this whole theory, this new approach for city design that we've understood has tremendous systemic benefits that could help create conditions to solve the meta crisis in a nonlinear way. This new approach is what we call bioplanning, or in Portuguese, biurbanismo. And this is the theory and the approach that we've recently published on this foundational book with a lot of cross-sectional experts, and is really at its essence a change in the geometry of our cities that we believe can foster a change in the geometry of our thought patterns. Because a meta crisis needs a meta solution. At the very, very essence, the simplest way to understand it is this. On the left, you have a traditional city, Cartesian grid. Okay, this is what Manhattan looks like. You have about 57% of built area, about 43% of road area, and unless you cut out an area to do a park, like Central Park, you almost have no green area. You have less than 1% of natural green spaces. But if we change the geometry of our blocks from rectangles or squares into cellular shapes, and in the center of every cell, we create green natural areas. Just by doing this simple shift, we're able to dramatically increase the amount of nature, the amount of green area in our cities, while keeping the same built area, the same density that we currently have. We're not sacrificing any of the magic of urban density that is the reason why cities exist, for people to connect, to meet each other, to bump into one another, to create innovation, like the space that you guys are in today in Sao Paulo. If this event was made here in Preá, where I live, we would probably have 5 to 10 people here, right? So without sacrificing the reason why cities exist, which is density and serendipity of encounters, we can dramatically increase green spaces and reduce road area. Same thing with volumetric analysis. Both sides here of this image have the same volumetric mass. We're not sacrificing any profit for real estate developers, any of the good stuff, and we're actually winning a lot of green area. We've done a lot of different studies in a lot of different scenarios. This is one that would be considered, a residential community in the US. So on the left, you have the traditional kind of cul-de-sac urban map. And on the right, you have a bioplan region that, again, dramatically reduces road, increases green with no change in built area, no sacrifices made. And we've studied this for different scenarios, right? This is another one that's done for cities, right? Like higher density, higher buildings. This doesn't have to be homes, could be also buildings. And we've been doing these studies and these modelings for a lot of different contexts, a lot of different countries, a lot of different scenarios. And we understand that by changing this geometry of cities, we really could have the systemic solution that stops the spread of the urban cancer that we have and starts regenerating a biocentric approach for life in harmony with nature. This is what bioplanning is all about. Now, I'm sure a few of you guys are already thinking, okay, but if you're dramatically reducing the road area, won't that increase traffic and traffic jams, right? We already spend a ridiculous amount of time that's wasted in traffic nowadays in our cities. Well, at the simplest solution here that is at the heart of bioplanning is by separating what is car flow and heavy vehicular flow, and pedestrian and bicycle lanes, right? So you separate them and you have a lot more safer traffic, a lot more fluid traffic. You increase the likelihood of people walking and biking to places by the middle of every cell through underpasses. And you unlock a lot of area that right now goes for sidewalks and for bike lanes for road infrastructure to be efficient, right? So you have at the center of every cell, you have these paths, these green paths that connect between one and the other through underpasses that are something that is very common in a lot of European cities already nowadays to have these underpasses. And therefore, by unlocking and segregating vehicular from bike and pedestrian, we can have this very fluid flow of cars, both by having the cells operate as big roundabouts, but by every intersection, these three-way intersections could also have specific roundabouts them to keep the flow very fluid and a lot safer as well. Because if you look at how a current road infrastructure looks like, we have 16 points of conflict on a four-way intersection, but only 3 points of conflict on a three-way intersection. If you look at a whole master plan of a neighborhood, this means that not only there are less intersections, but there are less points of conflict, which dramatically reduces the risk of accidents and fatal accidents and increases the potential speed of navigation of these different vehicles. Now, on top of that, we just lived in Brazil this year, one of the largest flood disasters in the history of our country, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. What is one of the biggest risk factors for cities when it comes to flood? It's land coverage. If we just put cement over everything, there's no place for the land, for the earth to absorb water. But if we have a quarter of all of our cities that are destined for green area, then we dramatically reduce the risk of floods in our cities, which could save trillions of insurance costs in the coming decades across the world. Now, another issue here, we're talking about mental health. I used to live in an apartment on the first floor of a building. It was a disaster. Every time a bus passed through my street, I had to mute my meeting that I was working because of the noise. And it kept me stressed, it kept me anxious. I couldn't sleep well. But by creating these cellular blocks, we really create insulation of noise and increase the capacity for good night's sleep and relaxation for the inhabitants of these cities. And perhaps, the greatest challenge that we're facing as a bottleneck for sustainable development is energy, right? But our initial studies have shown that just by changing from a 4-point structure to a 6-point structure, an hexagonal structure, and by planning out the height of our buildings with 2 peaks and 2 valleys, planned for the average sunlight path throughout the year, we can have up to 40% reduction in the energy waste for thermal control. Just look at this image. Red is hot and the blue-purple is cold. We have a lot more cold areas in a supercell in a bioplanned environment, which could have a dramatic effect on energy expenditure for thermal control. So we imagine a future in which our cities could look really like flowing hills of green, and you have green space in the middle, green space on the terraces on top, and really when you look from an aerial view, you see only green and the road that is at the center of these cells, right? Now, this could look in a lot of different shapes. It doesn't have to look like a bunch of cells, as I was just talking to you or showing on the past slide, but it really could be independent, separate buildings, because we can do this today. And we've done a lot of studies together with China State Construction, which is the largest construction company in the world, that have shown that we could use current building techniques, construction techniques, manufacturing techniques to build current designs of buildings, just changing the geometry of the road infrastructure. And by having central deployment in these complexes, we can build up to 15% faster. So imagine this, we're reducing road infrastructure costs by 20%, right? We're increasing the speed of construction by 15%. We're making buildings up to 40% more energy efficient. We're increasing green areas by 3 to 4 times, reducing the risk of flooding, improving physical and mental health of residents, creating niches for urban biodiversity. And we can do all of this today. This is not a moonshot. This is an obvious solution that we have to act on today. Now, okay, again, the skeptics of you on the audience. Okay, Davi, you're telling me this is a magic pill, silver bullet. There's no silver bullets. Why has this not been implemented yet? So first answer to that is this is something recent, right? This is something new that has been developed just in the past few years. And we actually just announced and went to the world with this last year during COP28 in Dubai. Now, the adoption of this from the two main actors that depend on for the world to actually adopt this is complicated by two simple facts. The first is from the public sector. If you go to most municipalities nowadays and you talk to the urban planning departments, most of them still look like they're doing urban planning like they used to do in the 40s, okay? They're drawing with maps, they're drawing with pen and paper, or they're using software that is already outdated. We could not do something like this even 20 years ago because of the limitations in modeling technology. It takes a lot of processing power to be able to create this parametric solutions adapted to all of these different terrain, water, weather, energy, but now we can. But urban planning has not evolved as a discipline really in the past 50 years. And on the second actor, which is real estate agents, funds, developers, well, let's just say that real estate development is literally the oldest industry in the world and one of the most conservative industries in the world. And it's really hard to get these dinosaurs real estate companies to adopt something that is innovative, that is transformative. So with this in mind, we created Supernature Labs, which is the company that's pioneering this. And we have 4 projects already that are ongoing. Unfortunately, they're all under NDA, and I cannot show you anything about these projects, but there are 2 projects in the Middle East, 2 projects in Brazil. And I'm very excited to show to the world this show this to the world very soon, what we're working on. But they're really interesting projects, a lot of diversity. And we created the Bioplanning Institute to support the adoption and development of bioplanning as an approach. So Supernature Labs is proving in practice by doing projects ourselves. What are the benefits? And there are a lot, both systemic benefits, but also financial benefits, because it's faster to build, it's cheaper in terms of infrastructure, and you can charge a premium for these sustainable products, right? So this is a no-brainer in terms of the financials, and I'm really excited to go be able to show to you guys the financial performance of these products that we're designing. But on the Bioplanning Institute side, it really is all about accelerating the adoption, right? And a collaborative effort. If we will double urbanization in the next 35 years, most of the plans that will guide this expansion will probably be defined in the next 5 years. So we need to act now. And that's why we're thinking about COP30 in Belém as a really important target date to show this to the world in a comprehensive, systemic way to drive the adoption of bioplanning as an approach globally. COP30, we believe, is the opportunity for Brazil to lead this transition towards bioplanned cities and become a pioneer in public policies, in financial mechanisms, and in a cultural movement that can really spark the fire of a global transition towards ecological, regenerative cities. And we think, looking at Brazil specifically, that Rio Grande do Sul, which needs to be rebuilt after the 2024 floods, and the Amazon offer a very interesting diversity of climate and urgent challenges, both of floods and of droughts, that are perfect to demonstrate the benefits of bioplanning. So we are putting together a task force. And this, what I'm about to tell you guys, is a call to action. If you think that this is important, and I hope a lot of you understanding this today do, we need you to put this together for COP30. We have 1 year to do this, and we have 3 different fronts, from the sciences to the finances to the culture. On the sciences side, we are working with some of the world's best urban planning labs from MIT to Sorbonne to UPenn, to conduct studies in 2 cities, one in Rio Grande do Sul and one in the Amazon, right? For these cities, what we want to do is create ecological urban expansion plans, right? How can these cities grow? Not like a cancerous sprawl of cities, but using bioplanning as an approach, creating regenerative urbanist areas, right? And together with that, have climate change resilience plans, right? How can these cities be prepared for floods? How can they be prepared for the increase in temperature, for the droughts that are to come, the shocks in food systems, and how can they develop their economies thinking about what are going to be the economic pathways for socioeconomic development over the next coming decades? There's a lot of talk about nature-based solutions. There's a lot of talk about bioeconomy, but what are these things in practice, and how can they drive the development of specific cities, municipalities? And ultimately, we want to have these comparative studies that show the benefits and costs of bioplanning as an approach in practice for each city. And we show, if you continue with the business as usual, this is how much you will emit, this is how much you will destroy, and these will be your socioeconomic health indicators, mobility indicators for your city. And if you adopt bioplanning as an approach, these are all the benefits that you'll get, right? So this is the sciences front. On the finances front, we're talking to some of the biggest banks in Brazil. Nothing yet concrete, so I won't tell who, but they're very interested in supporting by creating financial mechanisms, a fund that serves as a catalyst fund for the execution of these bioplanning projects, both for profit, both private sector and public sector, by emitting bonds to municipalities, by providing low interest credit for builders and developers to create green infrastructure and social housing projects in these cities, right? So we want really to have these projects to be executed, not just stay in a PDF and in a beautiful visualization. And we want to have a cultural piece that really drives the desire for this across the world. And we're talking to some major names of pop music across the world, both in Brazil and abroad, to create a new We Are the World song with pop artists from every single region, together with indigenous voices from every continent, singing the song of hope for an ecological future. What could our world be? What could our lives be if we decided today to grow this way, to walk down this path of urban development? And together with the song, a stunning, stunning video clip of scenes of cities across the world, including these cities in Rio Grande do Sul and in the Amazon, that show what they could become, created together with great names of global and national architecture. These amazing scenes that spark what we call futuristic nostalgia. You know, when Back to the Future came out, a lot of people looked at the hoverboard and immediately said, you know, I want that. When is that coming out? And lo and behold, you know, just a few years later, a lot of people, by seeing that, were inspired to create that product. And there were a lot of, you know, hoverboards in the market just a few years after. So we want to create this feeling of futuristic nostalgia on citizens across the world of what their cities can become, and spark this demand, both for real estate products, but also for municipalities to go down this path, earn political capital with their constituents, and deliver bioplanned urban expansion projects. And to go on a world tour that shows the world the power of this, inspiring, bringing hope, and sparking joy around this future of ecological harmony.
Davi, thank you so much.
It's
I'm
my last slide.
sorry. You're last, okay.
And yes, I'm just here to ask, and I'm sorry, I added this call to action, you know, last minute, because I really wanted to find the people who want to bring this to the world. What are the partners that are going to help us? What companies want to be a part of this, and who will be on the stage of COP30 with us to gift this gift to the world? Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to sign up, you know. I'm feeling anxious here. Anybody else feeling anxious? Mauro, help me. I'd like to introduce you guys to Mauro. He's going to join our roundtable with Davi. Mauro is connecting from the United States, and Mauro Castex. He's the founder of Oak Journey. And basically, he's been working for decades with sustainability, with the integration of nature with cities. So, Mauro, welcome here. Davi made me feel very anxious, so I hope you can help by letting us know how can we make this possible. No, Davi is already talking how we can make this possible, but what I mean is, like, in our daily lives, how far are we from this biomimetic world, and what are the main challenges besides the ones that Davi already mentioned? How do we sign up for that? Thank you, Mauro. The online stage is yours.
Thank you, Maria. Good to be here with all of you. Well, your question is not easy to answer. So first of all, I would like to say that I'm here to try to bring another way to view this challenge and to integrate nature to urban planning or business, anything, because I think that is very important. Sometimes what we need is to connect, to establish a language, a way to communicate what we need with other person, for example, that has a different understanding about not only about the nature, about the business, about the world. So during my period that I was working in São Paulo, in the government state, in an environmental secretariat, like a business administrator, I'm not a biologist or a forest engineer. I learned a lot during that period. So I was there for try to help them to create opportunities for the private sector to invest in parks and to create a better way to conserve these areas. Because we know, and Davi presented to us many interesting points about the importance of not only reshape, create another way to create cities, but to have a better way to use the resources that we have, a better conditions to provide a better environment for people to impact on health. So it's very interesting to see that during that period that I was there, it was possible to connect the ideas, connect the dots, and create a proposal for a need to bring more capital, to bring more investment for these natural areas. So it was at that time for parks, for these big areas that nowadays is suffering a lot of the pressure that Davi presented in the beginning, that the cities is doubling the land that they need to grow. So it's very important, this call to action, in order to rethink how can we plan better the urban areas, and how can we use the knowledge that we have on nature. And biomimicry is fantastic. You can say that it's like a technology that we can see nature, we can see a lot of solutions, not only about design, about the shape that we are using, but the function, as Davi said. So it's amazing. And to think about how can we overcome this challenge and to bring this for our reality to, okay, it's nice, I love it, this idea, but how can we start this? So it's very difficult when you see that we have big cities and we don't have the conditions just to rebuild everything and start again. So sometimes you can do a kind of a retrofit, is a way to change and provide a better solution that we have before. But if you can start since the beginning, I think it's the better opportunity that we have. So the challenge here that we have, I think that we need to think as humans, the way that we are thinking not only about the future but the present, and try to create different path to create this new reality. And I think that the challenge starts with us, not only to be humble, facing nature, but to understand that we need to learn a lot with nature. We need to, we have this chance to start again with these new places, new cities, but we need a solution now. So pay attention on that, and try to understand that nature can provide not only a better environment, but provide the ecosystem service, considering the regulation of water, air, leisure, resources, food, a lot of things, and knowledge, as Davi presented to us, a lot of knowledge, 3.8 billion years evolving. It's a lot of knowledge, and we can learn a lot of that. I don't know if I could answer a question, Maria, because it's not easy to answer this, and that's it. I would like to share at this moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mauro. I do have many questions, but let me hold them for now, because we're going to spice up this conversation with our friend from Dubai. He's also an old-time future hacker. He's from Italy, and his name is Guido Mercati. So Guido is the founder of Protein In, but he's also involved in so many other projects that are usually involved with deep tech. Guido, thank you so much for being here, for joining us. I know it's pretty late there in Dubai. And I have a question for you, because I know that you are like this strong believer in this transformative power of deep techs, and related to how we currently work and how it can change completely the way we operate. So we just heard Davi Lemos talking about how we are close to start in a simple way, Mauro as well. But what I'd like to ask you is to take us some decades from now. I know that the projects you're involved, they're already happening, but it will take a while for them to be able to scale. So how do you envision those possible futures? Can you share that with us? Thank you.
Hi, Maria. Thanks so much, everybody. So fantastic being part of this, and very excited about all the conversation. Kudos to Davi, kudos to Neil, and everybody talked at the beginning from Onono. I think we are really onto something very, very interesting tonight. And I think it's getting funneled into the bioindustrialism, as I call it. So whatever we now think is the new industrial era, that basically decouple production from traditional resourcing constraints. And I think this is an element of future-leaning vision towards the way we produce what we produce as a society. At the same time, is really playing at the intersection with the way we see the environment and the way we consider us as consumer producer. So with Protein, we operate in the deep tech space dedicated to completely disrupting the way we manufacture food, in taking capture CO2 and green hydrogen, feeding bacteria and getting protein out of it, or biomaterials. And this is something that is really at the core of this enhancing the productivity through the capacity of nature to respond to our needs. There is a McKinsey Global Institute study that basically says that 30 trillion of our economy will be affected in the next 30 years of nature co-design activity. That is almost half of the total global GDP in 1 year. So this is going to happen basically in the next decades, but it's really starting today. Nature co-design is what we call synthetic biology, or what we call data applied to other economical frameworks. Today, we have materials that are biodesigned, that are more flexible than Kevlar, more resistant than steel. They can self-assembling, they can self-heal, they can be recyclable at molecular level. And this is clearly affecting the micro and the macro of everything we see. Davi explained, how biourbanism or bioplanning can affect the way we think of urban environments and living solutions. We can think of the way we feed ourselves, the way we dress, the way we travel. Jason Kelly from Ginkgo Bioworks used to say that microorganisms already are recreating everything industrially we created. So this is flavors, fabrics, food, fuels. And this is absolutely relevant to the way we see this accompany exercise that we human we do with nature. And of course, there is a component of AI has been mentioned many times tonight. I think process optimization will see lots of AI involvement. So we will do the stuff that mechanically it's repeated work, or from coding to process optimization to funneling the workflow in a way that are better conceived and better organized, certainly. But also there would be a bit of thinking as well by new technological sourcing in the way we synthesize DNA, the way we edit bio-organic materials. And I think there is this duality as well in who's going to benefit from all of this. There are emerging economies that can skip or really jump into this new industrial revolution. They don't have incumbent industry to feed. They don't have lobbies that they want to do things the old way. So they can really giant leap. I'm in a country that has no arable land and no drinkable water, and they want to be food independent in a decade. Why? Because they don't have an established agricultural industry. If they had, like in Italy we had, they would be stuck in old processes and old way of thinking and old technologies. So they don't have that kind of burden, and they can giant leap into the future. So this can affect in positive emerging economies. But also there is that significant divide, and we need to think about this, of all the capital investments at the CapEx and OpEx cost requirement when you devise this new technology. So clearly there is an advantageous situation of the incumbent economies in having lots of IP, lots of know-how, lots of patenting invested into this new technology, and then eventually deployed down the line to the minor economies or the economies in development state. So we need to really think, and I'm baffled between this fork, like who's going to take advantage of it the most. And I think at governmental level, but also community level, we need to push our governments and our local authorities to embrace this change in the way we see industrial revolution happening with bio-industrialism or the enhanced opportunity that we have from embracing nature. And this is a collective effort. All of us, we can send an email to an MP or to a government representative. We can go to a project like the one that Davi was pushing and promote them. And I think this is an opportunity for our community, our kids. I'm a father of 4, so I know very well what it means to think beyond my own life cycle. And we're doing this for the good, but we need a collective effort in establishing also the framework and the vision for this.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Guido. And looking at the audience here, and also whoever is online and have questions, please feel free to use the chat. Eduardo is going to let me know. And you guys that are here, also, anytime you have a question, just raise your hand. This is supposed to be a conversation. But what comes to my mind, and why did I say that it makes me anxious? And that's a question to any of you guys, because the 3 of you are the expert here. Because on the same time, you know that this movie is so far away, so close, right? You just made it seem something that is close, that we can start simple, and it's right there. It's right there. On the same time, we have these amazing new technologies, we know, and we've been talking a lot here in Future Hacker about material science and biomimicry and all those things that are happening, and we know that are evolving, and that they are evolving very fast. But the question remains of how to scale, how to make it for everybody, and how far and how close, right? We do have an amazing sample here of startups that are right there working on that, right? But still, looking at the audience, and we know most of us come from corporate worlds and the big industries, and we still see them discussing so basic elements of sustainability and even questioning that, right? So how to make that switch, right? So any of you guys, another very easy question. Who wanna risk?
If I can start to break the ice a bit, because I know not that Davi and Mauro, they're shy at all, but just to take the first spot, so they cannot contradict me too much. I think there is a great opportunity here in involving the ecosystem, right? We need to work together once again. And when I think community, I think also industrial community. If there is one thing that this is really being affected by, it is the entire value chain. So before, you could be affecting a specific industry with a very precise technology, and that would be your job. You would spend a lifetime on it, and that would be enough. Today, any conversation that you have in any industry, it requires a longer value chain. I take my example. I work in biotech with protein. I don't refer only to food and technology. I need to go into energy technology. I need to understand where I source my green hydrogen. How do I capture CO2? If there is a CO2 trade exchange somewhere that I can profit to, what are my downstream partners when it comes to including my ingredient into food recipe, the regulators. So it's really a long and complex supply chain, and big corporations have a massive role in this because they are, first of all, adopters of this technology. Second, they are founding them. Without them, we're not going to fly really with deep tech early stage. We can't leave this to finance people and to Wall Street. We need also the corporate venture capital to have a role into this. And clearly, there is an element of open innovation discourse that we need to tackle in a totally different way. Open innovation back in the days, in the corporate world, in the 80s and the 90s, would be in one single word, which is M&A. And the people in the room probably, are laughing now because they know exactly that was the open innovation system. I see some new startups or some new company doing something better than I do. I will acquire them and I'll, use them as a byproduct or as a portfolio solution. Now, these little startups will radically change something that you're doing, and you wouldn't have the capacity to think that way because that would contradict, in terms of thinking, what you're doing on a daily basis to bring the revenues that your shareholder needs. So this really, how do we redefine open innovation and how do we work together? And with many of the companies in Brazil, in my latest trips as well, I discovered a great ecosystem, especially because you have a government that is involved. There is the Tropical Institute in Campinas, Embrapa, Ental, two governmental agencies, great R&D innovation centers, working together with Buller, Givaudan, Cargill, company of this size. So, and this is a system that I think we need to nurture. A bit of government entity that really shed the line on the vision, corporate that put the capitals and the will to transform this into viable projects, and then the startups and the innovators that they need to do their contradicting jobs and go in places where nobody would go otherwise.
And
Can I jump in?
Yes. Go ahead, Davi.
There's something interesting there, which is I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, which is, for a meta crisis, we need a meta approach, right? And by meta, we mean asking the next level, the next order question, right? So if the question that you just asked, Ligia, which is right, we have this problem. What are the conditions for the solution of that problem, right? And what Guido just answered, is a bunch of that elements of that that can lead to that solution. Private-public collaboration, investment, open innovation, environment, regulation. Now, I really want to ask the next level question, which is, what are the conditions necessary for that, right? Basically, how do we coordinate coordination? And the answer here that I would like to propose is in a non-linear way. We cannot do it in a non-linear environment. This type of problem is so complex that if we keep trying to use the same frameworks, the same ways of approaching this, we're never going to get systemic solutions. Never, never, never. So that's why, from the angle of urbanization and city design and environment design, we're proposing an environment that can foster nonlinear thinking so we can come up with non-linear solutions to non-linear problems, right? But there are a lot of other ways in which this can happen well that are not related to the physical environment, which is what I was talking about. But there are ways of transforming culture. There are rituals in our day-to-day interaction. How do we cultivate clarity of mind and not lose our focus and attention to, endless scrolling? And we haven't even started with, VR really getting, to the level of mass adoption. We need to cultivate sense-making capacity. We need to cultivate coordination capacity, relational capacity, and our social-emotional capacity, not to kill each other every time we disagree with a point, be it political or economical or whatever. So my suggestion would be to ask ourselves routinely, is this that I'm doing, is this decision, is this action, is it creating conditions for us to solve these problems? Or is it removing conditions to solve these problems? And most dangerously, does it look like it's creating conditions on the short term, but actually on the long term, it's removing our capacity to address this at a meaningful, deep way. It's the Band-Aid problem, right? It's a beautiful Band-Aid. A lot of projects, a lot of companies out there are beautiful Band-Aids, but they will not cure the wound, and it will fester. Even if there's a beautiful Band-Aid on top, the wound will fester.
I would like to add just one thing, Maria, very fast.
Yes, go ahead.
In a simple way, I think that we can use an expression that it's a very interesting quote about this, created by, I don't know exactly the name, I think it's Buck Fuller. If you need to change a mindset, just create a new one that make this old obsolete. I'm saying that you need to lead by the example. I hope that the project that Davi is proposing to us can be real as soon as possible, because when you have something working, it's easier to spread and to viralize and make this possible for other places. So I would like to add this point here in a very simple way.
No, perfectly put. We're soon going to wrap up. I'm just going to have one last question, okay? Because I know that we are a little late on the time today. And Yajin, please.
Thank you. Davi, I'll tell you that I haven't been this excited about urban planning, I think, in a long time. Listening to you talk about the bioplanning, it was just fascinating, blew my mind. And yes, I want to be, I want to be able to help however I can. But I think one of the things that, I kept thinking while you were showing the projection of what it could look like, especially in the Amazon, I kept on thinking, what does it look like now? Right? And thinking of all the social problems that I already have in a lot of the comunidades ribeirinhas, let's say all these, riverside settlements, very disorderly. How do you implement something like that in neighborhoods that truly could benefit from this on the one hand? And I keep thinking also new developments, for example, in Brumadinho, right? They had this whole devastation of the city. Now they've built a new city, but the people don't want to move there anymore. Even though they have brand new homes, they're unwilling to leave the place where they are because it's too far, whether it's too far from the community, they would have to start from the ground up. So I guess the question that I have is, I know that you're talking about new constructions, and I think it's wonderful, and I really want to see this happen. But at the same time, can this projection of what you're planning help in some ways what's already there? Or how can these insights contribute to solving problems that are already existing? So I think that's the question I have. Thank you. But I'm very excited about your project.
Thank you.
Another one signing up here.
What's your name? Sorry.
Yajin.
Yajin. Thank you for your question, Yajin, and welcome on board. Happy to have you together with us in this task force. So 2 questions there. To answer the first, really we can subdivide the world right now into kind of 3 different types of development that's happening. One is greenfield, right? Completely new areas that are either, were pasture or were devastated, or are inefficient productive land that can be transformed into urban areas. Then the second one is, built areas already. And then in the middle of those two is underhoused populations, right? So there's a lot of people that talk about current cities and how do we fix current cities, right? And as you said, the focus of our work is not how do we fix São Paulo. There's a lot of work being done on that already. And unfortunately, there's a lot less work being done about the urgency of urban expansion. So this is not saying that one is more important than the other. It's just saying that we have to divide ourselves to conquer and to solve this issue, right? So yes, we are not focusing right now on urban renewal, right? Like how can we fix São Paulo or Paris or New York? But it's all about the expansion. Now, the underhoused population in Brazil, there's a lot of people that live in communities, in the outskirts of cities with very little level of infrastructure and services from the municipality. Those are extremely interesting for us because you can actually have people that have an attachment to that piece of land and are already productive there and do a phasing process of transformation of that land. Imagine you have a whole favela, for example, and you remove one block of people, put them on a temporary housing situation, build up a higher density supercell, then move those people back in, and then you have a lot more empty space on that supercell where neighbors can move in. So you move another block of people already into that supercell. So you only have to actually do displacement once from the initial site. Because you're building higher density, you can then get other blocks of people, move at once, stay in the community, right? And the interesting thing about that, answering your second question, right, which is how we actually attract people to this. Well, not only it's going to be a better living experience and more beautiful, but we really want to be able to tie these two systemic strategies for bioeconomic development, for sustainable economic development. What are these new verticals of businesses, these accelerators, these education hubs and innovation hubs? And let's put those into those spaces that are literally designed for nonlinear thinking and innovation, right? If we're already this innovative, right, and this group of people gathered here today of quantum thinkers, imagine if we were living and studying and working at environments that are nonlinear, right, that are biomimetic, that incentivize and foster nonlinear thinking. So all in all, I would say that.
Thank you so much. Guys, you can see that we could be speaking about that the whole day. Unfortunately, we need to move on to our next panel. Guido, Mauro, and Davi, thank you so much. I hope there's also a to be continued here as well. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you.
So, are we ready to move to the next panel? Podemos continuar? Okay, so I'd like to introduce you guys to, I'm not going to be lonely here anymore. José Larrucea is joining us. He's the founder of Eclonomy, and he's going to tell us everything about it, right? José, thank you so much. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you. All right, everyone, thank you very much. Thank you for your presence and your attention, and you will probably understand why I mean that, why I say this in the next slides. So just a couple of sentences about myself. I'm a Spaniard by birth, Brazilian by heart. I married a Brazilian woman. So we moved here back in 2009. Today I have the task by Edu and the folks at Future Hacker to talk to you about technology, which is my passion, more specifically about Eclonomy. Can you hear me well? Is it well? Eclonomy and the AI-driven avatars. But before we go into the nitty-gritty of all of this, I would like to run a couple of concepts by you that will help me understand, that will help you understand what I'm about to tell you. So first of all is the attention market. How many of you know or are aware of this? Have you heard anything about this? Okay. All right. Do you know the size of it? Not in monetary terms, but in size, in terms of time. How many? Any ideas? Oh, this is working. Okay. So the attention market is basically defined, according to Google, is a concept where the most valuable commodity is people's attention. more than oil, gold, or data. And the size of it is 192 billion hours a day. And this is a very simple math. 8 billion people on the planet, 24 hours a day, there you have it, right? So this would be the playground for all humans, to do things on a daily basis. This clock goes to zero every day and then starts again, unlimitedly. So that's the first concept. The second concept is input and output. You can guess relating to the market. So inputting and outputting basically refers to us humans receiving, right? We can receive through listening, reading, watching, and feeling. And we can share as well, right? So we can do talking, we can do writing, video. At the end, we can express ourselves. Depending on choices, situations, time, place, you may be given more or receiving more, right? Now, typically, this will happen in different scenarios, right? You can be a parent, a child, you can be a student, teacher, CEO, an employee. You see that these roles will interchange, ongoingly, right? You can record a video, you can be reading, writing, and so on and so forth. So those two concepts, let's put them aside, just I think we're now familiar with them. But what are these AI-driven avatars? I think we might have seen, this is an audience of innovation. You might have heard, these concepts already in LinkedIn, YouTube, television. So I want to introduce you to this guy. You probably know this guy. And this is the picture of the movie that was released back in 1979, where the first, what we now know is a legacy avatar, was introduced to the big audience and the big screen. This was in cinema, right? In this particular case, it was the legacy avatar of Jor-El, the father of Superman, which it was some sort of a device through which Superman could, interact in a conversational way with his father's wisdom, right? And again, just mark the date. I think it was December 25th, December 1978, a long time ago. If we fast forward to 2004, there was another movie released called I, Robot, depicting a reality in 2035. There was another legacy avatar. In this particular case, it was in the corporate industry, and it was an avatar of a scientist, Dr. Danning, who's the creator of a robot, for those who haven't watched the movie. So you see the differences, right? This is more of a legacy in the family, and this is more in the corporate world, with a time span, very, very long in between each one of those. So the question is, what's happening today, right? We're in the middle of, we're actually at the end of 2024, after 2 years of ChatGPT that everyone talks about. What's going to happen, right? So, because we have basically 10 years from now until the depiction of the iRobot reality. So I'll have a few examples of what it is happening today. Some videos are like 4 or 5 months old, so it's a reality right now. And basically, I'll give you, let's say, food for thought, what's coming. So this here is a television interview of the clone of a CEO of a company building digital clones, digital interactive clones more specifically. His name is Dara Ladvardian, and basically is the first appearance in live television in an interview at the Fox Business. If you can.
Is the co-founder of Delphi, Dara Ladvardian, and making his first ever television appearance. Thank you for joining us. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you for having me.
And I want to start by asking your clone a couple of questions, none of which have been sent to you in advance or your company before now. To Dara's clones, let me ask you what you believe the purpose or the uses of having a clone really is for.
The purpose of having a clone is to scale your unique way of thinking and interacting. It allows you to share your knowledge, experiences, and personality with others in a personalized way. This can be incredibly valuable for mentoring, teaching, or even just sharing your insights with a broader audience. What aspect of cloning interests you the most?
Next. So this is a very quick explanation by a clone itself. This is clearly it's a digital interactive clone, so interactive in the way that you can do interactions in conversational way in real time. This is a quick interview where Jensen Huang, Mark Zuckerberg, and the CEO of Microsoft AI will give some gems.
Let me know if you need help with anything.
Where can I find the large eggs?
You can find large eggs on aisle 2. Thank you for shopping with us.
Can you go back to the next one, to the previous one? Okay, yeah. Yes, this one, please.
Every single restaurant, every single website will probably in the future have these AIs.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that in the future, just like every business has, an email address and a website and a social media account or several, I think in the future, every business is going to have an AI agent that interfaces with their customers.
Right.
There are going to be hundreds of thousands of AIs in the world. They'll represent businesses, they'll represent brands. Every government will have its own AI, every non-profit, every musician, artist, record label, everything that is now represented by a website or an app is soon going to be represented by an interactive, conversational, intelligent service that represents the brand values and the ideas of whatever organization is out there.
If you haven't hired an AI, do it right away. That's all we're saying.
There are many applications where we would like to interact with what is otherwise a human-like form. We call them digital humans. Okay, digital humans has the potential of being a great interactive agent with you. They make much more engaging. They can be much more empathetic. This is, of course, our vision. This is a vision of where we love to go.
Okay, so that was another example, very high level. And this is more of an example down to earth. This is in Waterloo, London. So this is happening at a retail store, a supermarket, where you will see on site a digital representation of somebody giving guidance to the customers. You can play this one.
Let me know if you need help with anything.
Where can I find the large eggs?
You can find large eggs on aisle 2. Thank you for shopping with us.
Very simple, very day-to-day. All right. So at the end, after these examples and some of the vision that we are seeing, if we ground it to today reality between the 2024 and 2034, how can we think about these AIs helping us, right? So if you're on the outputters that we talked about at the beginning, if you're an outputter, you will definitely gain ubiquity. You can be in many places at the same time. You will gain scale beyond the 24 hours. 1 hour for you can mean 100 hours people interacting with you. You will gain interactivity, without being present. And if you're in the business of monetizing your wisdom, you could definitely become, a source of revenue generation for you. Now, if you're in the inputter side, then you can definitely have access, to wisdom, and in a scale that was unprecedented, right? You will be able to speak with, digital clones of famous CEOs, mentors, coaches, nutritionists, just the list gets wider and wider. It's just people monetizing on their wisdom and making it available to other people, right? The good thing is in a conversational format. Real-time interactivity, like we said before, And this is important. It is to meaning, right? Because I mean, you can read books. You know, some of the wisdom is already there. You know, the creators are already publishing and doing videos, but you can have access to meaning directly. You know, and if you have questions, you can just ask the avatar, and it'll bring the information for you. And this is important. You'll have a wider grasp of choices, you know, for knowledge. This is really, you can be much more choosy and selective on what you choose to read and get that content directly to you. Going into the digital interactive avatar specifically, I see four pillars, right? For depending on your type of, let's say, of choices business. So one will be for content creators, so focusing on audience and influence. You know, content creators, influencers, and celebrities, public figures, they will have that technology to spread, right, and build, engage audiences and communities. You know, shaping trends, driving opinions, all with the representation of themselves, their wisdom, their knowledge, their experiences, you know, and in ways that were not done before. If you're in the business of transferring knowledge, you know, like professors, teachers, experts, you know, say in specific domains, you will have that capacity also applied to your realm, right? So share specific expertise in your fields, provide interactive educational experiences, facilitate learning, you know, all of that will also be available. Actually, that's one of the things that we talked about before, John. I think it really touches on that. Looking more into the corporate side, right? So the guide and instruction, C-level executives, you know, that could also be a very interesting tool for them. And what we saw in Superman, you know, the personal and legacy, that also be a component. Moving forward, this is a quick landscape of a study that we did at Eclonomy. We reviewed 16 companies operating in that space. There's two blocks, as you can see, the digital avatars. Is this working? Yeah. The digital avatars on the left side and the digital interactive avatars. These two basically provide different suites of features. The one on the left is more enhancing the efficiency and productivity, right, in the video creation, whereas the ones on the right-hand side, they provide this interactivity capabilities. You know, you can just build the avatars and then interact with them ongoingly. These two sets, just for the use, you know, it sounds like it's something in the future. On a monthly basis, there's 40 million people accessing these companies, right? So this is already a significant use in our days right now. Go forward. Okay, so we talked about the attention market. We talked about the input-output. We talked about the avatars. But what is this Eclonomy, right? So Eclonomy, for me, is a new digital frontier. Definitely, it is the intersection of knowledge, communication, AI, and economics. That's the name, Eclonomy. No? It is certainly transformational. You know, how audiences will engage, you know, with people, brands, organizations, and even governments. You know, if you take the words of the CEO of AI of Microsoft, they're already pointing towards that direction. And at the end of the day, this is just a reshaping of the future in digital interactions. We're going to have new things. You know, we talked about beings, right? So they're going to be stakeholders at the end of the day in the communication and in the information flow. And these are the digital clones. So moving forward, if we need to define what these AI-driven avatars are, I would say they're a digital representation, either real or synthetic humans, AI-generated, or a persona. Persona defined in the marketing term, like, you know, they may be a customer support representative or a sales rep, you know, that type of persona. And they will interact with us. They're already doing it, right? With text, audio, video, online, or on-site, like we've seen. They will certainly interact like humans, you will see, embodying knowledge, personality, and style, handling conversations, giving insights and personalized guidance. And at the end of the day, and this is, I think, what the superpower is of it all, is really scaling, you know, the human reach, right? So we are not going to be bound to the 24 hours a day that we have, you know, currently, right? And, you know, at the end of the day, and going back to some of the topics that we discussed and heard before, without being physically present, which begs the question about what are we going to do with the time, right? So, you know, discovering our internal, you know, selves. So this is just a quick picture of the stakeholders in the economy. Very quickly, on the one side, you'll have these companies building the pillars, right? The infrastructure, the platform developers, companies like Delphi, HeyGen, and others. Next to them, there are these agencies. Just correlate the term to something existing today is like the web agencies. Like, you need a website, you will go to an agency and they will build it for you. Same profile, just different stack of features. There'll be the avatar or the clone owners, the individuals, the avatars themselves, and the users, right? Obviously, there's a layer of legality and privacy that will intermingle in all this, but very quickly, we'll see that evolving. Okay, so with all that, this is nice and all, but at the end of the day, we're talking about superpowers. We're talking about things that can go beyond our 24-hour databases. So what are some big problems that we can tackle? And one dear to my heart is education. And I think, yeah, exactly. Back. Atrás. Esse aqui. Okay. Mais um? Okay. So this is the one that I feel that is very tangible. It touches all of us in all the regions of the world, and it's related to education, right? I don't know how many of you are familiar with a study from UNESCO 2023 gathered by Statista, but basically between now and 2030, and this is only 5 years from now, there will be a shortage of teachers in the rank of 40 million on a world basis, on a global basis, right? And this is a mix of the ones that are going to be replaced, new teachers, and new hires needed, right? So you will see the regions here: Sub-Saharan, Southern Asia, Europe, North America, Southeast Asia, North Africa, all of that. In total, 40 million, right? So how about, applying and starting to apply, at least conceptually and wherever possible, recorded lessons like we've seen before, adding a layer of interactivity in conversational ways, having questions and answer sessions, gathering student analytics, giving insights for teachers, and providing feedback for new lessons to be created. So this can all be, this technology exists today. It's just a matter of formatting. I think it goes very well in line with an article I had the pleasure to read from John. It talks on some of the aspects. But this is a problem that affects everybody, right? And I think from now on is just how can we use this type of possibilities, because I think it's just more than technology, and start looking at big pinpoints that are happening in our world today. So, and being creative and going forward. All right, so I hope it was not too boring. I know it's late. If you're still interested and even to learn, there are 3 documents that we produced at Eclonomy. One is definition of the economy, a short paper. Next one here is seeking abundance. So how can these technologies be used? And then there's a benchmark released in October this year about the AI-driven avatars as a market study that is also available. If you're also on the building side of things, you're a doer, right? I invite you all to scan this QR code. You can create your own digital interactive avatar. There's a 50% discount on the first month, so knock yourselves out. And what else? And I have, I think, a message. Oh, no, yes, not yet. If you want to talk to many digital interactive clones, and these are clones from CEOs, entrepreneurs, co-founders, experts, just you'll see there's in this particular list there's this kind of profile. Delphi also provides historical figures and some philosophers, so it is interesting to see how the input-output works in that sense. And last but not least, there's a special message. Hope the sound goes well. So this is my digital interactive clone. This is a pre-recorded message, but...
Hello, quantum thinkers. How are you? I am delighted to be here with you. Jose and I have been working on the materials that Jose shared with you today. I hope you enjoyed them as much as we did preparing them. Ah, remember, you can reach me at www.jose.chat. I will be happy to chat about digital clones, AI, and innovation in mindfulness meditation. Hasta la vista, babies.
Thank you so much, Jose. Could you please take a seat? We will have the chance to talk to Jose too. Yes, we can try. And great domain you got as well, right? Right. So let's see if it works out. If the technical part works out when we open for questions, we can try to ask Jose the question. Okay. So I'd like to invite another very special guest, Wagner Monteiro. He's the head of digital transformation here at BASF. Wagner, thank you so much for being here with us today. A lot of content to assimilate, right? Wagner, after all this exposition here from Jose, you've been working for a while with innovation, with digital transformation, right? And especially when it comes to human behavior, when embracing those transformations and I would say acting as most of people that worked with innovation, acting as evangelists as well. So how do you actually envision a scenario like that Jose sent us being applied, within companies on a day-to-day basis? And how do you see the challenges around that as well? What are your thoughts? I'm going to take a seat as well.
Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I always tend to be optimistic when I see new technology coming, right? I'm the kind of person who have the foldable phones and all the new smartphones and try everything. But I always think that technology has to be connected with something we want to solve, right? Any problems or something like that. Technology will be here, and there's one big challenge: how we prepare ourselves to use it. This is not an easy task. But when I look into what Jose was saying here, I can easily relate that this is an evolution of what we already need and what we already try. So would you like to have a personal assistant that can, let's say, read through your emails and check everything and unsubscribe for all those stuff that you don't want to do? Or even better, remind you to call your mom, or even call your mom for you and talk to her for hours. That would be great. Count me in. I want to try this technology, right? When we think about education, I was always been, let's say, a good student, but I never had the patience to sit down and professor speaking for 2 hours about something. And you guys will relate to that, but not all of our teachers are really good at explaining something for you. I would rather go sit down with the colleagues and try to solve by ourselves. But there are problems that you cannot solve by yourself. You need somebody to understand. You go talk to your teacher at the end. He'll say, sorry, skip my class, so I don't have time for you anymore. So I would love to have this guy available 24/7 for me, right? And if ask my kids, they would love to have this right at them as well. I think education is something that we can do right away. If you think about e-commerce, live commerce, this is something also that we can easily with no big hurdles. But thinking about, there are other challenging places for us to apply this kind of technology. I think customer service. Can you hear me better now? Yes. Yay, thanks. So, not yet, but maybe in the future. Guys, I think there are some challenging places for this technology. Think about customer service for a second, right? I work in a B2B company, and everything related transactional, that is easy, right? You can do. Where's my stuff? Payment terms. What's going on with everything I order? That's easy. That's great to do. But I was talking to a colleague. She's customer experience from a cosmetic company. So she has the consumer side. Although there's a lot of transaction stuff there, she was telling me some examples, and I want to share one with you because it was a punch in the face for me to think about that. She was telling me that somebody someday told them, would you please send me your product catalog, the print product catalog? I would like to have some old copies, right? So I keep thinking, how would a digital clone answer to that? But the person who was talking to this consumer, she was smart enough to ask why. And she explained that he has a special kit at home, and he only comes down when he was flipping the pages of this product catalog. It doesn't work with any other magazine, right? Only with this one. So they say, look, we send boxes of those magazines to every salesperson in the company. We can have another one and send to you every month. So this is what they do. They send once per month a box of those magazines for this mother. And then I think, man, we are not ready in terms of technology to this tricky decision, right? So this is something I think it's going to be very challenging. I remember a couple of years ago, I think you all guys know who Esther Perel is, the psychologist, right? A couple of years ago, she was giving a lecture in South by Southwest talking about a guy who made a digital clone of her. And he said, I took all your podcasts and all your books and I put into this AI, and now I can have Star AI anytime I want. She would talk to me and give me advices and everything. And in her lecture, she was trying to, let's say, she was at one side excited by the idea, and the other hand thinking, we have so many layers as human beings that she was curious if you're not going to be too generic on the answers, right? Because that's a specific problem of that person. So I think when it comes to individual, we have a really long journey into these digital clones are able to give, let's say, meaningful answers to us. This is more or less what I see.
Brilliant, Wagner. Thank you so much. And, to join our conversation, are we able to get Pablo, Andre? No? Oh, no. So let me tell you this story, guys. So Pablo Lobo was going to be joining with us, and then his flight got delayed, and then delayed again. So he's not going to be able to make it. But it means that we, as much as we are sad that you're missing this amazing content, we have time for more questions. So this is awesome as well. And you know what? I was actually wondering a couple of things. So I know that we are framing more as an opportunity thing and all the possibilities that we have, but I can't stop thinking on fake media and how hard it's becoming for us to know what's real and what's not real. And even this case that you just shared about the psychologist, like who knows which type of content that he's putting in there. So things like that, and copyright and things like that. And I know that there's no exact answer. We've been covering so frequently regarding how we need to be aware and educated around fake media today, and it's getting worse. But on the same time, I believe that there must be also an opportunity to explore this very same technology to protect us as well. Are you seeing, Jose, anything is in this direction being built?
So there's a couple of things that these platforms that we saw are doing, right? They're like I'm not sure if this is the best comparison, but they're like the hospitals of these baby clones. And when these baby clones are being built, the owner, whether that is the owner of the avatar or the agency, they have to show that they have the proper credentials to create the clone. So it's not that I can just go there and start creating clones. They will ask for either a verified ID or a permission. So these are things that, this is something that Dara from Delphi explains very well. They do it manually, right? So it's not something that it'll scale in the long term as they go mainstream, but they're aware of these dangers. And the idea is to really filter and make sure that whoever is creating from their platform is the person is a person who is actually, the real person behind, right? So that's one thing. And there is other aspect that some of these companies are doing is the deep fakes identification. And this is a system that they put in place exactly to avoid and to tackle that kind of problem.
Okay. So, and Wagner, how do you see being, you're 100% involved, like in as you said, you're into B2B right here. So you get everything that's going on also in the corporate world. So how do you see this being working when we say like in data privacies and these protections? And do you see as something that is slowing down innovation, or do you think that those are safeguards that we need to be aware anyway, and it's going to be addressed as necessity comes in? And thinking about as a consumer, right? I bet that nobody here likes interacting with the old way of bots, right? So like we just it's and when you experiment trying the AI agents instead of bots, you're like, how come nobody else is doing that? And it's taking a while still to companies to adapt. It just seems that companies are being very cautious and still testing a lot, but it's coming, right? So what's your view on that?
So I think at first when you look internally, right, in your own company, in your own environment, what I like about BASF decision in this point of view was we're going to let people try. Right? So they didn't cut the access to ChatGPT when everything, let's say, started, but they put a big disclaimer like, hey, pay attention. Do not use your personal data. Do not use your company data, right? But that was like, we didn't know how to start. So we just say, okay, be careful. Then we create safety spaces in the company. So this is our version of GPT. You can use here. This is safe environment. You can put confidential data. Still, do not put your personal data in there. This is work. This is not, let's say, home, right? And then we start looking to business problems and say, how can we try this technology to solve business problems? And we let people, let's say, experience, have conclusions and say, man, it doesn't work for that. Stop it. Oh, this is not mature enough yet. Hold on a second, wait for next version and everything. So in that sense, I think that's the way I believe we should do it. We cannot just say don't do it, because people will do it with their own phones. So here's a safe space for you to do that. But when it comes to change of mindset, this is for me the biggest challenge. We have our own version of GPT, and I think it's almost 1.5 years now. Every time we have a discussion, we have a program here in BASF called Beyond the Hashtag. So you can see how old it is. We are still trying to teach people back there what the hell was this language of digital. But every time I have a lecture about something related to technology, still people ask me how to get access to this bot. Right? So there's still people lagging in that. There still need somebody to take their, say, come with me. You are a lot behind schedule, but we can put you up to speed so you know that this technology can help you out. And this, I think it's a long-term job, right? It's about culture. It's about maybe you're doing at home, maybe not even at home, but this is there. And I like that sentence that became very common with AI was, it's not AI is going to steal your job. It's somebody who knows how to use that that's going to steal your job. And I still believe that every technology works this way. You need to know how to use this tool, right? Even, or it has to get sophisticated enough so you don't suffer too much to use this tool, right? So UX on this kind of technology will improve. And this is what Jose showed us. But we need to have the willingness at least to try out. Then we can see the benefits.
And how long will it take you to do your own avatar to be teaching BASF? the ones that are lagging, right? Just leave your avatar there. Take care.
I remember a website that I learned from my kids. It's called Character AI. So you can go there, you can create your friend, right? So you're gonna find there Steve Jobs if you want to, but you can create your own, upstuff your characteristics, whatever you want there, and it's an interesting experience, right? So something that you should try because it's your own responsibility. And this is what when I think about the fears behind this kind of technology, this is what comes to my mind. Which company would you trust to build your own AI? So how do you know it's really you there? I don't know how much confidence you have on that, Right, so this is something you have to try out to see how much further you want to go with this.
Who's behind those hospitals, right? Jose.
Exactly.
So, anyone has a question here? Anybody? I know you would have a question. I know. You know, you talk about education and using avatars. Okay, Ligia.
Thank you. I think, Jose, you help to amplify and specify how different would be AI as an avatar and our biological avatar. At the beginning, people usually like put together, oh, the AI, it's going to be me. No, you put pretty clear here for me. It's going to be a better version of my portal, my site, my social media, my videos. I have a lot of videos, podcasts, and so on. And my biological avatar would be my best version of my digital avatar because it's going to be the most updated. I'm going to wake up with new feelings, emotional consciousness, maybe a soul inside. And I think you helped me. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
As I was listening to you both, I'm not quite sure how to frame the questions, especially talking about education. And I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. I think on the one hand, when I look at the data and say, well, 40 million teachers are, and there's a huge gap, and you think, well, we need to find a technical solution. And it seems like, AI would be an option. But when you think about the essence of education and what really needs to happen, it's not about just passing down content. That it's sort of hearing that we're going to have clones teaching our kids sort of gives me this unsafe feeling, or just kind of bothers me somehow. And knowing that computers, well, not computers, but somehow these non-sentient beings are going to be teaching our kids. And I think when we think of education, we think of layers, right? So maybe for content, it's okay. That's what we do. We turn on the internet and watch these videos and we take down notes and that. But I think when we're talking about the earlier talk that talks about meta, the level of metacognition, meta problems, meta crisis, I think that's a layer that's not really substitutable just yet by computers. And I think perhaps it gives us, the people who work in education, a big red flag is, are we substitutable, working at the clone level, or are we really working at the level that we should be, which is at the meta level? So I think it's an interesting provocation. The second thing that I wanted to bring into the table is, and talvez peru mostra, como é que chama? Peru que mostra morre de véspera, né? The concerns, right? So what are the possible concerns that we should have about, these AI taking over our education? Because when I look at children, and I work with basic education children all the way to high school students, children, there's a phase in their lives where there's no distinction, perhaps, between physical and abstract. So when you go to those kids with that abstract notion, will they understand that that's not really a person there that's interacting with you? So what kinds of problems, psychological, emotional problems, can this kind of interaction with inanimate objects, let's say, even though it's an avatar, we say there's a person behind, but it is really inanimate. What kind of psychological implications will those have on children? And really, I think somebody mentioned the movie Her, or She, I can't remember. Will they start projecting and thinking that these computers are actually their friends when they're really not? So I think those are the questions that come into mind. Not really a question, just comments.
Right. No, and I think they're super sensible comments. I think this is us, for the ones who are parents or thinking of education as a means to betterment. I think they really touch on some spots. I think in the example that I was giving, I was defining a pain point where if we don't do anything, the education will be non-existent, right? So there will be no teachers, and there will be millions of people not getting access to content, education, to be better, right, and to progress in life. So I agree with you. I don't think it will be a binary solution like, hey, let's do this. I think it's how to say this? It's an evolution in the tools that we will have at our disposal to cover part of the gap. I think those tools will have to be managed by a mix of skills, Some of those skills will be teachers and educators. Some of the other skills, I'm not so sure. We're just touching on this with John as well. I'm not sure if there will be teachers specifically, and more of media or content handlers to some extent, infrastructure, to make sure that those kids who do not have access to that content, they'll be able to see it, to receive it, and to and to digest it. Yeah. But I agree with you. It's not just a one's all, like, hey, just switch for everything that is a digital avatar and then everything will be fine, right? We need to take into consideration, I'm not a teacher or a psychologist, so I will not be able to measure the impact, but I think it has to be a mixed approach. One of it, for sure, I would say will be technological, but it'll have to be driven by humans and humans knowing the impacts of education with the different tools.
Just one additional comment on that. I think content-wise, we already live this. YouTube does a much better job than some teachers, depending on the content, right? But it's curated content, reliable one. But behavior, it's a completely different story. And more, we don't teach our kids, let's say, the content or technical content. We want them to know how to face new challenges. We want them to choose their professions based on, are you good in distributing tasks? Are you good at receiving the task and making sure it happens? Because I don't know what kind of job they will have in the future right now. So it's not about learning engineering or learning any other classical job that we have. It's more like what kind of skills they have to develop and who's going to teach them. And I'm pretty sure it's not AI going to teach them that. We need experience, right? And in that sense, I think I agree with Jose. I think we have different roles for different people in technology.
Great, thank you so much. Another question?
I really would like to make a comment because we're thinking mostly of kids, but when you think of the things we're trying to bring to our companies all the time and to update the companies all the time, what if I want to still working at 80, but I don't know a new thing to do, a new skill to do? How would I learn it? And how would we rethink our museums to make people learn things without standing in front of a painting they don't understand, or other moments of learning and how they interact? Now we have in schools and universities very strict one-way absorption, and how we go to civil engineering schools and present new ways of building stuff that integrate with nature and make questions and open the space so the student also has time and space to question and to understand new ways of doing this, and where the teacher doesn't need to be the only one who has knowledge of it. I think understanding new forms of bringing the conversation, bringing new topics, and actually have space to question new ways of doing it, because we are all different people, because we have all different backgrounds. That is the challenge, and how we make all of those people absorb this in different times, because everyone's different. And I think technology is a way of doing this, and not everyone would understand and would absorb and would use this in the same way. So I think I follow most of the work Wagner does in here, and I see how people evolve, they use, and how people see the technology. So they absorb the same information, but they see the application in many other areas. So I just like to put this on, because we're most of the time we talk about learning and education for kids, but we also have like a huge group of people that are trying to learn and change their lives every single day.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Guys, I think that we're way out of time, right? Thank you for staying here for so long. Thank you so much, Wagner. Thank you, Jose, for being here. Our partner here, André and Ornella, are going to do a wrap-up. Thank you, guys.
I have a speech 4 minutes to talk about the resume. No, I think I'm very grateful about this audience, the high level of discussions. I think this is the proposal of Future Hacker, cross-industry, cross-country. I think this is the reason why we exist. So I'd like to thank you very much for everybody here, Future Hackers, Onono, Ornella. I think that is a partnership is the beginning. I think the next year you have a lot of events like this. No, it's not necessary to go to Side by Southwest. Here is Side by Southwest. It's more cheaper. That you have to take a plane. Oh no, here is man. So thank you very much.
BASF. We create chemistry.